episode 8. Today I am talking about Playhouse and Park's production of the Richard Oberacker musical Bandstand, with music by Oberacker, book and lyrics by Oberacker and Robert Taylor, directed by Sean Harris, choreographed by Darlene Zoller and Robert Mintz, and running at the Playhouse at 244 Park Road in West Hartford through August 20th. I'm a big fan of Bandstand. I think it's a wonderful and vastly underappreciated musical. As a Navy veteran myself, I take much of the show's message to heart and find it deeply personal, which may or may not lead into a lengthy tangent that I may or may not leave in this review. We'll see how this goes. Bandstand follows Donny Novitski, played by Benjamin Nurthen, a World War II veteran whose best friend, Michael Rubber Trojan, dies protecting Donny from a grenade Donny accidentally drops during a battle in the Pacific. Suffering from severe post-traumatic stress disorder, he returns to his hometown of Cleveland and has trouble finding work as a pianist for local bars and clubs. After hearing about a national radio competition honoring returning veterans, he finds 5 other veterans who play as well to form a band to compete. He also finds Julia, played by Katie Luke, Michael's widow, who he promised to check in on, discovering she's a singer and gets to join the group as well. Each member of the band, including Julia, is suffering from some sort of PTSD, whether it be the suicidal trombonist Wayne Wright, played by Chris Haley, the alcoholic bassist Davy Zlatic, played by Alan Mendez, or the brain-damaged drummer Johnny Simpson, played by Dan Jantson. They and the rest of the band deal with their internal struggles as well as the external as they prepare for the competition. Unlike the musical New York, New York, which I recently reviewed, Bandstand doesn't overwork its plot in trying to give every character equal time, instead focusing primarily on the 2 leads, Donny and Julia, as their conflict lies in Donny's unwillingness to discuss how Michael died and the guilt he carries because of it. Though I agree with critics of the show that many of the songs don't offer melodies that you can walk away with singing, and the plot pretty much moves in a mostly predictable fashion, I don't really care about that too much. This is a show about healing and hope, which even if you're not a veteran or don't know any veterans, you can relate to. As for the music, in the moments when seeing Bandstand, the songs fit perfectly where they are, and they move the show. Though most of the songs are performed as bandstand pieces by the characters in the show, the songs have narrative function and tend to fit the theme and character of the scene and express the feelings of the characters within. This is a big reason why Bandstand works so well for me. These characters, who are all suffering from pain, trauma, and grief, are all able to find a balm of some sort in their music, expressing themselves in ways that they can't through words. Music has always been an unspoken language for me, and I suspect it is so for many of you too, for expressing your mood and feelings when you have no other medium to adequately express yourself. With Playhouse and Parks' production, I feel that, particularly for Donny and Julia, they pull that off, expressing their pain in the music. It makes sense. Julia is mostly the lyricist for the ensemble, and Donny is the composer, so they would have the deepest connection to the music. Benjamin Nurthen and Katie Luke are at their best when they are performing these songs, especially during the penultimate numbers for both acts, Love Will Come and Find Me Again and Welcome Home. It's a little harder for the rest of the band to be able to be as highlighted in this fashion, as they don't sing, and they are dependent upon the notes of the music written for them to do their best to express themselves. It's a stickler of a critique, but I would have liked a bit more aggressive tone from the rest of the band in their playing, especially during Welcome Home, which lyrically pushes each one of them to emotionally exert themselves in their various solos. Aside from that, the only other negative critique I have of this production of Bandstand is I feel Nurthen has a tendency to act with his forehead too much, leading head down with a scowl. At times it makes sense and is a correct choice, but I would have liked him in his more vulnerable moments to open up a little. He's a tall, broad-shouldered man who needs to expand himself physically and lead with his heart more at times. It would project a bit more diversity in his acting choices and make him more vulnerable when necessary. Katie Luke is great. I love the strength of choices, of her battling between being guarded and vulnerable, when to open up to Donny and when to fight for knowledge as to what's happened to her husband. Plus, her voice is butter. It's got a soaring lyric soprano when singing outside of the band that comes down into a passionate, not quite brassy, but still bluesy laden tenderness when singing the jazzier numbers with Donny and the band. And thank God everyone plays their instruments and plays them exceptionally. I would have rioted if the actors mimed playing their instruments in a show where playing the music live is so important. Some of the highlighted supporting cast include Alan Mendez, who literally scared an audience member as Davy as he stumbled across the stage in near drunken oblivion. It's a sad, sensitive performance. Then there's Chris Haley as trombonist Wright, who nails the frigid nature of a Marine who has come back from war, seen so many horrors, and freezes up emotionally toward everyone, staring at a gun all night, wondering if release will be found there. Zoller and Mintz have choreographed some excellent dance numbers. The show swings musically, and the ensemble appear to be having a great time dancing along. There are also some beautiful, sensitive dance moments, especially for James Felton II, who portrays a spectral Michael throughout, haunting Donny. Like a musical motif, Zoller and Mintz give him a recurring dance move of him bending and almost shrouding himself that sets up the haunting emotions about to be exhibited. Okay, here's the part where I interject the tangent. I said I might do it, so I guess I am. I guess it's not totally a tangent as it is pertinent to one of the show's themes, but I will say it does focus on the second act and is quite a bit spoiler-laden. So if you want to skip this part and not have the end of the show ruined, I encourage you to go to the time marker I will be sharing now. Okay. At the end of Act 1, the band wins the state competition and are given the possibility of going to New York to compete in the national band competition. But the show's producer tells them they have to pay their own way to New York, and there will be a preliminary round where they may not make it on to the live broadcast for NBC. This comes as a surprise to them all, as this was not explained in the rules when they initially entered the competition. Donny and Julia then sign a contract, not knowing that they have signed the rights away to the song they performed during the broadcast. The song is supposed to be Love Will Come and Find Me Again. As an act of revolt against the producers, they instead decide to perform the more impactful Welcome Home. This is where the message of Bandstand really hits home for me, and I would be remiss not addressing this. I'm a veteran who served deployed overseas in the Arabian Gulf, but I was only on an aircraft carrier and mostly out of harm's way. But as a veteran, I've met many an Army and Marine vet, and some Navy ones, for that matter, who served in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the things they've experienced have left them eternally changed. These are men and women who have paid more with their lives than anyone ever really appreciates. I have friends who can't attend 4th of July celebrations because fireworks trigger their PTSD. And nothing stokes my ire regarding veterans like how much abuse they receive from people and organizations that take advantage of them under the guise of patriotism when all they care is the money that will come in through the exploitation of service members who don't know any better. In the instance of Bandstand, it's Bayer taking advantage of Donny and the band by exploiting the fact that there is an all-veteran band competing in a competition. This still happens today, whether it's an athletic organization with super flags for the national anthem, or some giant corporation with their manipulative advertising about how pro-American they are, using veterans and the military in their advertising, when all they really care about is making money off of you. Or politicians exploiting veterans by putting them on stage with them with promises to make veterans' lives better when all they want is the financial support for their campaign from suckers who look at it and think, oh, that candidate is so patriotic and loves this country so much. See how they're expressing support for our veterans. Most of it is bull, and Bandstand knows that, calling out the exploitation for what it is. If you really want to support veterans, dismiss the grandstanding and posturing of proselytizing pundits and contact your local VFW or American Legion and see what you can do to help them. Or find a nonprofit that supports veterans. Be sure to check their score on Charity Navigator, a website that grades nonprofits to see what percentage of their revenue they actually give to what they claim to support. I know the Wounded Warrior Project gets most of the press, and they aren't bad, but there are better ones out there, and some that would probably have a more local focus where you live. Now back to the regularly scheduled review. Bandstand may have a pretty simple and predictable plot, but I love the show. Yes, my affection for the musical may come from a more selfish place than most people, but if I can remotely help open where the seed of that love comes from, maybe I can help others see why this show is so important to me, and you can, if anything, at least appreciate where it comes from. Though there are a few small issues with Playhouse's production, this is a joy for me, and I hope you take the time to visit West Hartford and find fulfillment for you as well. But I am only one man's opinion, so be sure to leave yours in the comments below. If you'd like to see Bandstand, I'll leave a link in the description. I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon. Your support is always appreciated. Also, my first drawing for a ticket to join me to see a play, in this case it's The Cottage on Broadway, will be held Saturday, July 22nd. If you want to enter the drawing, become at least a $5 Neo tier patron and visit the Patreon page and reply to the post that is currently there. You can also support me by liking, sharing, and subscribing, and click the notification bell to be alerted to future reviews. My next review will be the Summer Theatre of New Canaan's production of Beauty and the Beast. Thank you for watching, and I will see you at the theater.